We're in the Welsh mountains today, back in Ruthin. It's windy and wet. It's the Welsh winter, but it's very atmospheric here. It's very green. It's just great to be out of the city and in this sort of wild, rustic type of Wales. England's a very manicured country. Wales still got this wildness about it, this roughness. And we're outside Ruthin Castle. You can see the ancient castle of Ruthin, a 14th century castle. Proudly Welsh. Well, the big thing at the moment is the assassination of the general Qasem Soleimani, or Suleiman, named after the great Ottoman Emperor Suleiman the Magnificent, the famous Iranian general who ran roughshod over the Middle East for a long time, for decades. I mean, we're going back a long way here. 1979, the Iranian Revolution, when the mullahs took over Tehran and pushed aside the Shah and began the Iranian Revolution, the Islamic Revolution. It's been now, obviously, an historic event, almost as important as the Bolshevik Revolution. It's changed world history, what happened in Iran in 1979. It brought Islam into the modern age. And it's a dynamic force, it's a revolutionary force, it's a transforming force. And it won't stay content in the status quo, especially in an American-dominated world. It wants Islam to rule the world. I mean, Khomeini, he sort of pushed the Shia peoples, the Shia revolution in Iran, but he triggered the Sunnis as well to return to fundamentalism, to return to the Quran, and the Quranic sort of pushing the Muslim people, admonishing the Muslim people to take over the world, to become a revolutionary force, to engage in jihad. Jihad is the struggle to advance the Dar al-Islam, the world of Islam, across the world. Now, you've got to put it in that context, because what America is dealing with is a dynamic foe, a foe that is restless, a foe that can change sides, that can change its agenda, but has always got this fundamental agenda of pushing Islam. And we know that Islam operates within a mode of thought called taqiyya, which Muhammad described as the war of deceit. You're never quite sure if Islam is your foe or it's your friend, whether it's with you or whether you're against you. I mean, people are saying about this General Soleimani that he defeated ISIS, he fought with the Americans in certain situations, you know, against Saddam Hussein. He was hostile to Saddam Hussein, and therefore we've got to give him a pass. He's the good guy. But these people, they change positions all the time. One minute they'll work with the Americans, the next minute they're America's deadliest foes. America has got to hold the line. It's got to say, if you cross this red line, if you kill innocent American citizens, you're a criminal and you will be punished. That's why Trump, and this is really important, Trump was 100% right to take out the general. Now, it was a shock that he did it. It was a shock because the West has been so weak in the face of Iranian provocation for a long time. In 2007, during the Afghan war, David Miliband had the opportunity to take out General Soleimani. The SAS tracked him down, knew where he was, targeted him, and were ready to assassinate. Miliband bottled it. David Miliband. Not unpredictable. But Soleimani was behind the IEDs in Afghanistan, which were blowing up British troops in the Helmand province. Over 400 British lads were killed by this man and his scheming. Yeah, it wasn't an Iranian state action. Iran uses proxies. It would use Hezbollah, which is the Shia militias in Lebanon, which become a worldwide criminal organisation. I'll talk about that later. And he will use the Shia militias in Iraq. He will use them as proxies to attack America and kill American civilians. Trump's not going to be fooled by this. Trump's not going to accept this. If Iran is behind these killings, Iran must pay a price. Now, we've seen Iran take down American drones. We've seen Iran capture British ships, American ships, humiliate our armed forces, our sailors, our military, by arresting them and putting them in, making them, binding them and humiliating them as they take them ashore. All this is totally unacceptable. The fact that we've accepted it in the past is wrong. This is a sign of weakness. And of course, there was no one weaker than Barack Obama. Barack Obama indulged Iran at every turn, just as he indulged ISIS in many ways. He had a very sort of, not passive, but sort of supportive approach to the Islamic world. He wanted to make friends in the Muslim world. He wanted to support Islam and its goals and its development. I mean, that's why he sent to Iran billions, I'm not sure how much, but billions upon billions of dollars he gave to the Iranian government, which the Iranian government lapped up willingly, said, oh, we'll put our nuclear program on hold, and we'll use this money to advance the Iranian revolution further into Syria, into Iraq, into Lebanon, and in Yemen, South Yemen. Iran has been exporting its revolutionary Islamic doctrines across the Middle East. Now, people think that the Shias and Sunni are always fighting each other. It's not true. Often they cooperate. For example, Hamas, which is dedicated to the destruction of Israel, Hamas was financed by Iran for decades. Hamas is part of the Muslim Brotherhood. It's a Sunni Muslim organisation. When it suits the Muslims, the different factions, they'll work hand in glove. When there's a conflict of power struggle, they go against each other and it ends up in civil war like Syria. So we're dealing with a very slippery foe. And the only thing this foe understands is the exercise of power. It will manipulate friends and enemies. It manipulated Obama. It manipulated the British. It manipulated previous American administrations like Bush. It will manipulate them as much as it can. But when it faces real strong resistance, it's only then that it bends and buckles. Trump has given the right signal with this assassination. He's drawn the red line. He said to the Iranian government, this far and no further. The Al-Quds, which is a branch of the Revolutionary Guard of the Islamic regime in Iran. Al-Quds means Jerusalem. General Soleimani was head of Al-Quds. Al-Quds' goal is the destruction of Israel. Now, whatever you think about Israel, this is a dynamic revolutionary goal. This is a goal which is going to create perpetual warfare, not only in the Middle East, but across the world. And this is why Hezbollah has developed this criminal network across the world. Iran is involved in something called asymmetrical warfare. They know they cannot take on America face to face, missile to missile, army to army, because the Americans will crush them. But they can use other tactics, guerrilla tactics, criminal tactics. It's not widely known, but Hezbollah is heavily involved in the cocaine industry, in the exporting of cocaine from Latin America and its importation into America and Europe. Hezbollah has been making a fortune out of this. Now, the CIA know this, and they told Barack Obama about this, but he gave it a pass because it was part of the nuclear deal. He allowed Hezbollah to build up this international network, just as he's given Al-Quds a pass. Al-Quds is a revolutionary Islamic force which is determined to destroy Israel from the north using Hezbollah, from the south using Hamas, from the west with the Iranian military, especially from Syria. Now, this is an ongoing problem. It's an ongoing source of trouble in the world. The Middle East, as we know, is like a volcano, and it's always about to burst. You don't know who your enemies is, you don't know who your friends are. One day, the Wahhabis, the Saudis, are on your side. The next day, they're with Iran, they're against you. They change sides. They change their perspective all the time, as long as it suits them. Because Islam is based on this notion of eternal warfare. Islam regard us as the Dar al-Harb, the place of warfare, the place to conquer. The West is something to overcome and destroy. And that is an ongoing reality. They can make peace with us when they feel up to it, but they can go to war when they want to. They can use force or they can use diplomacy. Trump has got to be realistic. Iran has gone into a warlike mode. This is before the assassination of the General Soleimani. Iran is suffering through these economic sanctions that Trump has imposed upon it. We must stop Iran getting nuclear weapons. Trump has said they will never get nuclear weapons. That means he's taken a step to say that if necessary he will use military means to stop them acquiring nuclear weapons. This could be an airstrike on Iran, bombing raids, cruise missiles, drones, whatever, even an invasion. But we must stop Iran from getting nuclear weapons. We must curtail the power of Iran to cause trouble around the Middle East. And this is just in the West's self-interest. This is just in our defence. It's not a defence of Israel, because we don't know who Iran is going to turn on next. Its goal ultimately is to overthrow the West. Islam wants to dominate the entire globe. We have to be aware of this. It's an underlying dynamic. It's not always evident, but when it comes to the fore, it's very, very destructive, and it's ruthless. General Soleimani has murdered thousands upon thousands of innocent people in Syria, in his own country, Iran. Demonstrators, he simply mowed them down in cold blood with machine guns. In Iraq. And this is interesting, because in Iraq, the Shia militias attacked and murdered the Christian population. In Syria, the Hezbollah Shia militias protected the Christian population. This is the way the Muslim work. You don't know what they're going to do. When it's politically right for them to do it, they will support Christians and defend them. When they regard the Christians as their political enemies, they'll annihilate them. This is the people we're facing. This is not based on any principles. They have no respect for Christianity. They have no respect for Christian populations. They regard Christianity as something to be destroyed and something to be pushed aside. We have to be aware of that. They have no respect for us. And therefore, the only way we can get respect from them is to impose ourselves by force. And this is what Trump's done with this assassination of Soleimani. He's shown where the red line is and where it should not be crossed. Now, how will Iran respond to that in the short term? They're making a lot of vicious warlike noises. They're rattling their sabers. They're saying they're going to do this and they're going to do that. They may do it. We're dealing with an irrational foe. But in the past, Iran has dealt with America with caution because they know the consequences. And I think once the period of mourning subsides, once the surprise of the attack subsides, the Iranians will come to their senses again, and we'll see them be in a more sober mode. But there's risk ahead. There's risk of attacks. There's risk of attack on American civilians, on Westerners in general, on Western targets. And Trump has to respond to that. He has to respond. He has to punish the Iranians as soon as they step over the line. We're not dealing here with international law. America will obey international law. Iran won't. Iran is a criminal regime, which the only thing that limits it is fear. And Trump is right to say to all the leaders in Iran, he's targeted the right people. You can all be targets. We can take any of you out. If you decide to engage in war against America, you will be the ones to pay. Not the Iranian people, but the leaders and the military. And America can hit them hard. And Trump didn't really want to go down this road. But when you're faced with a violent criminal, a violent opponent, you have to. You have to take these measures. You have to be very decisive. Now, he's got a lot of criticism in the West for being so decisive. I mean, I was watching the Hollywood sort of award ceremony recently, and they were all saying, oh, if only women were running America, wouldn't everything be nice and sweet, and we wouldn't have all this military and stuff and all these troubles. We don't live in a world, in a kindergarten world. We live in a world which is dangerous, where we have violent and vicious and ruthless and determined foes, and occasionally we have to use our military to stop them. Trump has shown himself as being capable of acting like the commander-in-chief, of making decisive moves, and of attacking and destroying the enemy when necessary. This is a really important message he sent to the world. Trump is 100% right, and therefore we should back him. I'm really disappointed with members of the alt-right who've just gone on the attack against Trump and saying he's a Zionist puppet and so on. No, Trump is acting on behalf of the West, and Iran is the enemy of the West, the Iranian Revolution. Just like any Islamic fundamentalism itself, we have to be on guard and we have to do what is right. So God bless Trump, God bless America, and I say to Iran, just watch your step.